Good morning, everybody. Can you believe it's kind of cold here in Florida, or at least like by our standards? It's like in the 60s, and that makes me need to bust out a sweater, so here I am. But of course, this lovely plant doesn't mind. This is going to be the begonia, the Babywing begonia, in the bi-color pink. It is so pretty. It's one of my favorite pinks in the garden. I just think it's a wonderful plant. Believe it or not, this one's actually about a year old. I bought it around this time last year in preparation for October being a breast cancer awareness month, and I had this in a little container by my front door. And then just after a couple months, and once I wanted to go ahead and change out the container, I went ahead and popped this out, and I wanted to keep it and see if an annual here could go ahead and like what it would look like after a year. So I wanted to go ahead and show y'all as well, and just kind of talk about it and maybe open up a little chat and discussion to see how y'all's do from year to year, or what y'all do with your annuals if you're in an area that it could like perennialize and it doesn't necessarily have to die back. I've been noticing here some of my annuals can get like a little bit woody, so I'm kind of surprised and glad that this one hasn't done it. Like I've noticed like some sun patients and stuff can get like really thick stems and just get like a woody look, and it just doesn't look like a fresh annual anymore, if that makes sense. But this one doesn't really mind it, doesn't mind us entering the fall season right now. It is hardy to about 0 degrees Fahrenheit, so it doesn't mind the cold. And then it does like some light watering. I have had some problems in the past with begonias with rot due to probably overwatering. So I would just make sure to note that the begonias might not take as much water as you think they would, given that they really like a lot of humidity, which would probably lead you to think that they could be pretty thirsty of plants. But don't keep, keep them in water or let them have wet feet for a prolonged time. I find if I was to raise this, you would notice that it's in a nice little terracotta pot that has a bunch of grass. I just mowed yesterday, so I probably should have cleaned the pot. But I have it in a terracotta pot so that it can dry out in between its waterings. This one gets watered about every other day by a little like pop-up sprinkler head that's actually right behind it from this camera, from this viewpoint right next to me, I suppose. But there is like a little pop-up sprinkler that goes ahead and waters it for about half an hour every 2 days. That way, between like the coastal breeze and the sunlight here in Florida, it does like dry it out in between the waterings. So this one I've really put here after it was in my greenhouse for a while, but and it was doing pretty all right in there, but it was just a little bit easier for me to go ahead and put it next to a little sprinkler system that I don't really have to worry about it for right now, just because I do really like this plant and I want it to thrive. So as much as I would like for it to be in my greenhouse where I could maybe enjoy it a little bit more, if that makes sense, when I do see it, I think it appreciates the consistency of the irrigation. As y'all can see, it's pretty nice and full. That is one thing that's really nice about begonias, is that if you get them to go ahead and thrive, they will flower nicely pretty much all the time. And then they're not really high maintenance plants. You don't really have to deadhead them. You don't have to worry like much about like pests and molds and things like that. They are actually pretty like stress tolerant, if that makes sense. Like if you like, they are pretty okay with some drought. They'll get maybe like a little bit limp until you water them, but they're not that bad at getting dried out. They are not too bad about being overexposed to the sun. In fact, the leaves might actually get a little bit more of a coloration to them. I don't know if you might be able to tell that some of the leaves have like a little bit of like a red edging to them, and if you kind of leave it out in the sun a little bit more, the leaf will turn a little bit more of that red color in general. And there are some varieties that the leaves can actually get rather burgundy-ish, like the red-leafed pink begonias or red begonias and things like that. Those with more sun stress do show a lot more coloration in the leaves. I have had this one in partial sun When I had it in the container at the front of my house, it was getting more of like the morning sun, and then when I had it in the ground for a minute in the back of my house, it was getting partial sun, and which was afternoon sun. And now that I have it here next to the sprinkler system, I would say it's getting most of the sun of the day, like let's say midday or mid-morning sun, all the way till mid-evening or pretty much sundown. So yeah, I just wanted to go ahead and show y'all one of my annuals that I've kind of really been babying, if that makes sense. I know a lot of people just treat annuals as really dispensable plants that once they show any signs of not being pristine, they just kind of toss them out. But annuals, some annuals do bounce back pretty easily, which is really nice. You wouldn't maybe think that. And then as you can see, this one, like I said, has been here for about a year. And just to give you relative scale, I don't know if you could kind of tell by me being next to it-ish, it's about maybe 15 inches tall and about a foot wide. So that is generally about how I can get. It gets like a foot and a half tall, and then about 10 to 12 inches wide. So if you want a nice drift of it in the landscaping, you could put it, about one every 10 inches or so, or maybe even 9 inches if you want it kind of condensed, to go ahead and put like a drift of those as like a nice border. But that's really just about it. I wanted to go ahead and just really emphasize that, at least from what I thought in the beginning, begonias aren't the thirstiest of plants. They do appreciate consistent watering probably more than like other plants do. So do make a note of that. They just don't want to be like sitting in water soaked. They want to dry out. I have had some issues not using a terracotta pot, which is why I have a terracotta pot now. But when I've used like a glazed, like ceramic pot and things like that, the moisture wouldn't dissipate enough. So I have had some like root rot and things like that in my previous begonia experiences. So I hope y'all have a wonderful fall morning. Please try not to roast me too much for wearing a sweater in fall on like September 23rd or something like that. Have a good one. Bye.